It's time for AggroChat, the official podcast of the Tales of the Aggronaut blog and stalwart gaming community, where we talk about stuff and things, and the stuff about the things, and sometimes gaming. I'm Blaugust, and let's start the show. Hey folks, it's that time again, time for another episode of AggroChat. This is episode 353. Tonight I'm joined by Ammo.
Hello.
Ashkar. Grace.
Hi.
Kodra.
Cheese and crackles.
Tam.
Hello.
And Thalen.
The robot wants me to do math.
It's so wrong. I don't know why robots want us to do math. They're clearly better at it.
Yeah, and they want to prove it. That's why they want you to do math.
Exactly. I'm gonna punish you for not doing math.
Yeah.
So I will say, not that I necessarily want to get off on a Final Fantasy topic, but apparently someone replaced your usual bell with a totally different bell this week. Because not only did I heal an instance, actually several instances, I also did an alliance raid as a red mage.
Madness.
Wait, what?
That's pretty sus.
Yes.
Bell is sus.
Belle, I have to tell you, this isn't a podcast. This is actually an intervention.
I mean, technically Eos healed the dungeons, but...
Right.
But you had the stone equipped.
I had the stone equipped. Yeah, I like this will be shocking to most people, but I have a level 50 astrologian and a level 50 scholar and a level 50 white mage.
I mean, to be clear, the first time we killed Titan EX, I was a white mage.
Yeah, but this is less shocking for you than it is for me.
Is it really? Because the only other time I played a healer was in SWTOR.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, playing a healer in EQ burned me real bad on playing healers, so...
I will say, Belle, you play healers more than Ash does.
It's true, probably.
Granted, Ash plays wizards more than you do.
It's true.
Yes, this is true.
I like Red Mage. Red Mage is fun.
Red Mage is pretty great.
It's a sword mage.
It's one of the few mages I don't play in that game, actually.
I should play it again. I enjoyed it, but it gets a little repetitive.
The thing I'm really into right now is Machinist. Machinist is super fun in whatever revision we decided it is. The third revision?
At least 3.0.
Yeah, I don't even know at this point.
Possibly 3.5.
Does anyone... So, on the topic of classes, leveled classes that came as a surprise, I have a level 80 geared white mage.
When did this happen?
I don't know. I couldn't tell you when I did this.
Has someone else been playing your account, Tam?
I can't imagine.
So
Did the Mughals do it?
I do remember when Shadowbringers came out, healing on a scholar was not fun at all. So, I mean, Grace, you were running an astrologian for a while, weren't you?
Yes, but I don't think I ever actually got it up to the level cap. I still only have scholar and dancer, I think.
I have several ladies now. I have red mage and paladin and warrior and bard and samurai.
I had quite a few more than I was expecting. I knew black mage, samurai, what's this called? Gunbreaker. But I didn't remember actually finishing Scholar Summoner. I sure didn't remember White Mage. I'm like, Ninja 78?
Felt like you needed something to do? I don't know.
I remember you playing Ninja, though. I absolutely remember you playing Ninja.
I also remember you stopping playing Ninja, but I think they revamped it after that point.
I mean, I got everything at the time up to 50 because I really wanted to get rid of a bunch of gear from my vaults.
Yeah.
And after that, there's been strategic levelings upwards. And then, anyway, I thought people would find it entertaining that I actually healed. and someone else tanked.
That's weird.
That I know. So it was. I mean, I sort of threw out occasional heals, but mostly it was EOS. At low levels, EOS heals real well.
Yes, you can mostly just not do anything.
Yeah, no, like I was basically casting Ruin. I mean, that's what I was doing, not healing. Other things that are happening, starting tomorrow, it's Blaugust again.
August.
And we have
Madness.
35 people signed up, I think, last I checked.
That's super exciting.
Nice.
Yeah, I mean, like it's not as big as the one year that we had like 80 people signed up, but you know, it's a pretty good showing.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's pretty great.
We have some new bloggers, which is always exciting. I mean, a lot of the same usual suspects that participate every year, but I'm always happy to see when somebody starts a new blog.
Yeah, I think that's really great. I think it's always encouraging to me every year to see the new people that start.
And like since we switched to Discord, it's been kind of a year-round thing, which means the actual event is less emphasized per se, but like people tend to hang out in the Discord all year long, and there's a lot of use of the channels like post discussion where, you know, if somebody didn't want to talk about something on a blog, they bring it to the channel and actually talk about issues or things that are in person. So it's been interesting. Like, there's a lot of people that started as newbies that have stuck around and are continuing to blog, and that's maybe what my hope was, because, like, honestly, I'm gonna be straight, like, the longer it has run, the more of a bad idea I have thought forcing someone to post every single day has become. Because like it'll burn people out, which is why I've tried to, in subsequent years, stress the 31 posts a little bit less by having, you know, different measures that like aren't necessarily you posted every day. But I don't know. I everyone always asks me if I'm running it again, and every time I contemplate not running it again, I feel like I would feel bad if I didn't. So, you know, we're doing it again. It's pretty low key.
I know that like this was a concern even back when I did it, and I will say 31 posts was a bit of a burning out for me.
Yeah, like there's a lot of people that will do all 31 posts because they're competitive, and then we won't see for them until the next year. And I mean, and that feels kind of like that's maybe not what I want to happen. But you know, it's a thing now. It's got a life of its own. I'm really happy with the community that's grown out of it. So it is happening again. If you're interested, check the blog. There's information on how to sign up. And more importantly, just kind of watch the Blaugust 2021 hashtag as you see people posting their stuff, and definitely read new posts and participate in conversations and help the newbies out. So I know this next thing has a specific topic in mind, but it is on the list, I think, as a more generic topic of great games that dropped off your radar.
You know, I mean, I'm exposing the fact that I put it on there, but like, it wasn't really specific. I think I was looking at it was a conversation from a couple of weeks ago when we were talking about modern Final Fantasy games and how FF15 has great DLC, and I've never played any of it.
Me either.
Just dropped off my radar.
I mean, there's a whole Warhammer Online type mode where you create your own character, and I've not done any of that.
That's a completely separate
Not
game
Warhammer
now.
Online. Sorry, I was thinking Grand Theft Auto Online, to where it's got like this whole, I mean, it's its own game mode. I think it even has its own DLC, doesn't it?
Does it? I don't even know.
I think it's got some DLC that's just for that game mode.
Yeah, and I was just, it was sort of like, there are so many good games, and there's so many games that like release stuff that I completely forgotten about. And I'm curious, like, I mean, partly just to fuel my own, what am I playing lately? But like, what are other people playing that, you know, maybe you picked up after a while? I completely forgot about some stuff.
I mean, for me, I lose track of Final Fantasy XIV every time I stop playing it, and then I'm always shocked at how much content went in when I come back.
I know that. So one of the games I know about is I loved Persona 5 and Final Fantasy 7, and we have talked about them, but I haven't been able to get back to them for their like Persona 5 Royal, or what is it, Royals Edition?
Yeah.
And also the FF7 Yuffie stuff I haven't gotten back to.
For me, it's not so much that as I completely missed Strikers. It's a game that should be entirely up my alley.
It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, mine is definitely Genshin Impact, which I was playing every single day for ages and then just stopped because there was nothing new coming out for a week or something. And so much stuff has been added since I was gone. There's tons to do.
I am going to suggest that maybe I was a little busy at the time Persona 5 Strikers came out, which was the middle of April.
But, I mean, game I have completely missed is Monster Hunter Rise, and I ended up picking it up, but I've never really spent more than a few minutes playing it. And I know, like, it is a whole rich game, just like World was.
Hey, Belle, we should play that.
so that we can both get dogs?
I mean, that's only a 2-star quest, so I'm probably going to do that tonight, but still.
Yeah, I mean, now especially that it's starting to get crossover content, like, crossover content was some of the most interesting content that went into Monster Hunter World, because it was wildly different in some places than what you were used to playing. I really wish more games did random crossovers.
What you're really saying is you wish more games were Japanese.
Yeah, I wish more games were Japanese. Yeah, I mean...
I will be honest, I never really got into the crossover events.
I've loved the ones that have showed up in Final Fantasy XIV. I really liked the ones in Monster Hunter World.
I like the PSO ones as well.
Yeah, the PSO ones have been great. I wish more companies did this thing. And, like, part of what makes me want to get back into Genshin Impact is that there's an Aloy crossover event.
I mean, that is absolutely what got my attention.
That is so wild, but her character art is so cute. I can't wait to see what she looks like in the game.
Yeah, I can't wait either.
I mean, it's a Frost Archer, and I don't think I have a Frost Archer that I use, so sure, awesome.
I mean, I have a Frost Archer, but I'm still gonna play Aloy because Aloy.
Yeah.
That's a very good reason.
You're jonesing for Forbidden West.
Let's not talk about anything that has to do with the PS5 right now.
Yeah. 10 million units have been sold. Probably 8 million of them to scalpers.
I mean, I will say that I have not gotten enough time with my PS5 because it's usually not in the right place for me.
You're just asking to have somebody come to your house.
I have offered several times for somebody to be able to come to my house. They know it very well.
Mm-hmm.
If they want to come to my house and grab my PS5 so they can play Ratchet and Clank, they can.
Hint, hint.
But like Ratchet and Clank is the game that I think of like, oh man, I need to get back to that. But I have a bunch of unfinished games, and right now I'm trying to do something about finishing some of them, which is part of the reason I'm on my Celeste kick right now.
Finishing Celeste.
I want to... my definition of done with Celeste is I've completed the Seasides and Farewell.
Well...
I hear the Seasides are much easier than Farewell, actually. And
I can believe that, but only barely.
I mean, I've already done Old City Seaside, and I've almost completed. Like, I've gotten very close to the second stage's Seaside. Seasides aren't bad. They're like one really intense screen.
I mean, it's 3 really intense screens, isn't it?
It's usually 1 very intense screen and 2 that are not that bad. Especially for part 2, I actually one-shot the first 2 screens.
Fair enough.
And then I got to screen 3, which is a thing. But none of them are probably as bad as Farewell.
I mean, a couple games that I've lost track of. Star Wars The Old Republic. I mean, I think there's like 3 content drops that I've never played. And there's an actual legitimate expansion coming out this year.
I mean, for right or wrong, there's ESO, Guild Wars 2, and Final Fantasy 14, which I am way behind on the story content in all of those.
I am not sure I will ever catch up.
I don't think I'm ever going to catch up in ESO.
Like, I love ESO, and I'm happy when I'm playing.
That story content is just coming out faster than I'm playing it.
Right, like the 4 drops a year, I just can't.
Finally, they have created enough content. Actually, that's probably not even true. I bet the serious ESO players are like, oh man, I just breezed through that content in a weekend. Now we get to wait another 3 months.
Sure, but it is plenty for me. Like, I love returning to that game and playing new story that I've not experienced. And honestly, like, it's kind of been the same way anytime I went back and played SWTOR, that there was new story to play. The game I've totally lost contact with for a long time that continues to truck along is Lord of the Rings Online.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it releases content just, I mean, like, every time you turn around, it seems like there's a new expansion coming out.
My old boss actually tried to get me to play that game.
I
haven't gone back to it since it was originally came out.
It's not EverQuest or EverQuest 2 levels of content release, because I think both of those still release 2 expansions a year.
I am hard pressed. They exist, but there are very few MMOs that I have bounced off of harder than Lord of the Rings Online. It gave me. I actually think that something I want to play exists now, but and I hear that the storytelling is great.
I really liked the community, and that's a lot of the reason why it kept me going for as long as it did. It's this weird blend of Burning Crusade era World of Warcraft and Dark Age of Camelot. At least that's what it feels like to me. But like, Landreval is an amazing server.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Because like you go walking through Bree and like there's people like actually randomly role playing, and it just added to the ambiance of that world to see it like inhabited and lived in.
And plenty of players who basically just spend their entire time in the Shire, just, being hobbits.
Game I want to go back to, but I don't think I'm gonna like what I see, is Wolcen, because there's been 3 content drops since I last played, but I have a feeling it's still not going to be the game I want it to be.
Yeah, I suspect that there's more to do, but I'm not sure that there's more I want to do in that one.
I do know there is an ill-fated seasonal mode where, like, if you want to level all the end-game stuff, it's just as grindy if it's in a non-seasonal mode. And that game has more just grindy nonsense at the end for minimal gain.
People seem to like Last Epic now, which they didn't always before, so I have no idea what they changed there.
When they release the multiplayer patch, I will try it again. Because what I am looking for is a game that is, I guess, a replacement for Diablo 3. And like that has a very specific kind of play that I've just not experienced in any other game of that style.
I am deeply behind on Warframe.
That too.
Yeah.
I don't consider that a large drawback, really. Like, there is more story that I can go and play at some point.
Mm-hmm.
And probably the thing I need to do to go play that story is locate where it starts. That's
Yes.
probably it.
Yeah,
the brand new stuff.
boy, am I so much more inclined to hop in and try to remember where I was when that barrier is so low.
Yes.
Like,
There may be the additional barrier of you need a railjack. Speaking of which, if you haven't logged in since you built yours, you probably have a giant refund waiting of, whoops, this barrier was too high.
oh, huh.
Oh, railjacks are a lot cheaper now?
Like, I think that they cost 10% of what they used to cost.
Ooh,
So they refunded all the players who built one before they made that change.
that's handy.
But I think that is required for some parts of the story now.
I know to do all the big ship stuff, you've got to have one.
I just think those ships are so cool. Like,
They are cool, and they've been doing a lot of things with them to make them, like, first of all, to make them more solo friendly, but second of all, to like let you do other things in them.
oh, really? Solo friendly, you say? Time to patch Warframe.
Yeah, they added the command intrinsic.
Yeah, Warframe's definitely another game that I have lost the plot of. And I will have to get back to.
Warframe is kind of like Eve, that it's a world that I'm not super interested in participating in, but I love watching it evolve.
I adore Warframe. Like, and I think we've had this conversation a few times, Belle, but for me, Warframe is what I wanted out of Destiny.
Yeah, and I keep trying to make Warframe play like Destiny.
It is never going to play like Destiny.
Man, I feel like I Destiny feels so slow compared to Warframe.
And that's
Yeah.
the thing that drives me nuts with Warframe. It's just too much movement focus, and it ends up giving me motion sickness.
Yeah.
Yeah?
No, I totally understand that. And for me, it's like, oh, hey, this is a game about movement. I love movement.
Well, and even like when I was revisiting Mass Effect Legendary Edition, there was content that I had never completed that I got to experience again.
In which game?
Mass Effect 1, actually. Like, there was a lot of content in
that's
Mass
not
Effect
surprising.
1, because I, for the most part, tried to beeline my way through Mass Effect 1 because it was not a great experience. And now that it's less of a horrible experience, like, I've gone off and explored more. And there's a lot of stuff there.
Mm-hmm.
It definitely, like, some of the narrative options that you can uncover definitely make Mass Effect 2 more interesting. Like, it doesn't actually affect anything as far as the flow of the dialogue tree, but, like, you know way more about Cerberus going into Mass Effect 2 if you've really gone off and explored.
Yes.
Well, yeah, but with Mass, like, if you go off and explore in Mass 1, this is my problem. You know that Cerberus is such a bad idea. Why are you working with them in Mass 2? This was actually my frustration with Mass Effect, and like why I kind of bounced off of Mass Effect 2 for a while. Because after I finally like sat down and really got through Mass Effect 1, I was like, oh yeah, this is great. I love this. And then
I never understood that perspective until I got more of the 1 content. Because like
it was
that was all stuff I hadn't seen.
Off of it.
Yeah, because Cerberus is just this awful org that's been messing with tons of people all throughout Mass Effect 1. Yeah. Yeah, that kind of actually bounced me off of that game.
Well, and Mass Effect 2 is my first Mass Effect. I did not ever play the first game until after the fact.
Huh.
Like, I just didn't get into it. I don't know what MMO I was playing at the time, but whatever it was kept me from playing it.
I mean, probably Burning Crusade.
Probably, yeah, probably. I was probably no-lifing, World of Warcraft. I know I did take a break for Dragon Age.
There's a bunch of games with 3 in the title that have dropped off my radar that I need to check on.
Well, I had never made it through Dragon Age Inquisition until the beginning of this year. Like, that was a big empty spot. And, like, it was a game that I bounced pretty heavily off of, and then now just straight up love. It was a great experience, but it took me a while to loop back around to playing it.
What games are you thinking of, Dan?
Well, I remember trying Torchlight 3, and there was some like vaguely interesting promise there, but it wasn't like fully baked.
It never became
Yeah,
big.
Yeah,
You can
I'm
save
sorry.
your effort on that one.
All right. Well, it's fair. It never got baked. There's Baldur's Gate 3. Well, I don't even know where that is.
That's not out
Well,
yet.
it's not
Like
done.
you can ignore that until it's actually out.
All right. And I know that Total War Warhammer 3
Also not out.
isn't out yet, but I don't know even when it's coming out because I want to play that. I can't wait. I love those games.
Game that fell off my radar that I want to return to is No Man's Sky, because it has changed so much since when I played it.
I wonder what No Man's Sky multiplayer is like, because I have heard it is so cool.
I mean, I think you can control capital ships and stuff now.
Yeah, like
Oh,
I have heard that No
interesting.
Man's Sky is super awesome now.
It just kept growing.
Yeah. I've heard that it's super awesome from multiple people whose opinions never match up.
Okay, so see, here's the thing. No Man's Sky has turned into what Star Citizen promised.
Right.
Also, Warhammer 3 does not have a release date yet,
Boo.
But you
but it does have
mentioning
giant armored polar bears, so I'm probably going to buy it.
so mentioning No Man's Sky definitely reminded me that Subnautica and the sequel were off my radar for a while, and I finally came back to them recently and loved them.
Well, I know it's still in early access, but Ooblets is another title that I played heavily for a while and then just have lost track of.
Yeah, I got back into that one, and it's still delightful, and now there's even more of it to be delightful.
I think that one's not entirely my thing. I think Temtem is maybe more my speed. But again, I haven't played a whole lot of that game.
Well, and Temtem is now available on Switch, so I feel like that's the ideal platform for it.
It's also technically still in early access.
It's a really
Yeah,
complete
I'd
game
like to play
for
co-op
early
Pokemon.
access.
Yeah.
There's like a whole slew of games that I backed that I have no clue what they're up to now. Like, I had loosely kept track of Crowfall, and now it's officially released, and I still don't think there's a game that I'm interested in.
Let me save you some time there.
Yeah.
Like I don't think there's a game that's interesting there, but like I have a group of friends that's playing it, and they're seemingly happy, but
What are they doing?
I have that question too.
I don't know. Like every time I see like pictures of it, they're just harvesting stuff. So I don't know. Maybe that's a thing. Maybe that's a fully fleshed out game that is enjoyable, but
It didn't give me a chance to see it while I was playing it in beta. I don't know.
Yeah.
I can believe there may be a game there, but I didn't see it.
I have yet to see evidence of it either. That's why I kept bouncing every time I'd download it, install it, and patch it up.
Yep. Their class design is even kind of okay, but their character creation is not.
Yeah, the character creator is definitely not. It also just like there are plenty of games that I play that are not like cutting edge graphics.
But it just looks.
And it doesn't bother me. But
Art design does a lot.
art design does a lot. And honestly, if your game is going to look like Crowfall, it needs to run better than it does.
What? Okay, so the problem that I have with the art design of Crowfall is it's very uneven. Some class race combinations are way more detailed than others, and it definitely feels like a bunch of individual people made these things. Not this came from a department where everything was curated and art directed. So it has that same feel that something like Second Life has, where there's a wild degree of people modeling for it. And you can have like super rudimentary models and also super detailed models trying to interact in the same space.
I mean, this is a soapbox I've gotten on in the past, but the other thing, there are a bunch of games that I have played that I wouldn't like, except that they message really well. If I use an ability, I know what that ability does. I can tell when it's hit things. But and there's been a lot of like I understand the difficulty in trying to do a non-hotbar MMO, and it's why so many settle into hotbars. But if your mouse look is always on, you really need to think about what your abilities are doing.
Something Wildstar something.
Something what?
Something Wildstar something. I actually think Wildstar did a very good job with this.
I think Wildstar did a pretty good job with it. I think ESO does a good job with it.
Yes.
But it does so.
Guild Wars lets you toggle it on, but you never should.
Yeah.
Guild Wars 2 lets you toggle it on, but you never should.
Right. Secret World let you toggle it on, but you absolutely never should.
And then you got the problem, for me at least, where I find PSO2 and New Genesis completely unplayable as a ranger if it's not turned on.
Yeah, but
also that.
Yeah, but it's one of those interface things that if you basically like, because there is friction between an interface input and what happens on the screen, there's a lot of player assistance that you need to do to make your game not feel assy. Honestly. And so like most games are like, hey, are you reasonably close to your target? If you're doing, mouse look shooting, yeah, we're gonna give you those hits. Are you playing a melee game? If you're pointed in your movement vaguely in the direction of a target, or if there's a target that could conceivably be imagined to be in your range, you'll move and hit that target. And like, there's an incredibly great, I forget who does the presentation, but there's an incredibly great like rundown of God of War and all of these things that it does to let you know. And it's very invisible when you're playing, but it's like, oh, okay, this is how a hit feels. This makes melee feel good. Because it turns out that if you're doing melee, if you're like a third-person melee action game, and you don't have a lock-on system, and you just like attack in whatever direction you're going in, especially if you're locked into a long animation sequence, it feels really bad because you're going to whiff a bunch and then get hit.
Mm-hmm.
And like, the saving grace of a game like Dark Souls is that it doesn't animation lock you for very long, for the most part.
Dark Souls also does have a lock on.
Dark Souls has a lock on. It does animation lock you enough.
Yeah.
So one of the games that kind of suffer from this problem that I think is no more, I think it's finally dead, is Fallen Earth. On paper, it should have been.
That's going way back.
It should have been a game that I loved. It's basically a Fallout MMO. But, like, it was sort of a hotbar combat and sort of a shooter and had this awkward toggle system back and forth where if you were in shooter mode, you couldn't interact with anything in the world.
They should have started me out with a pistol that wasn't an air gun that took like 4 seconds to reload between each shot.
No,
and do
I was going to ask you.
no
I thought I remembered you playing that game.
It was
on stream, I think.
It was a miserable experience, but like also at that point, Fallout 3, Fallout New Vegas existed. They should have built an MMO around that style of interface where you just like hit E to interact with things and you were just a shooter. Because like for the most part, you're always going to be shooting something in that game. But the toggling back and forth between I'm shooting something and now I'm doing things felt awful. And they did start you out with some really crappy weapons.
The tutorial where you got to use the good weapons was really fun.
Yeah, and then they took them away from you.
Yeah, I mean, I understand that feeling like progression is happening is important. Boy, do I think a lot of games go too far with it.
That game definitely did. Like, it gave you a game that was fun to play for like 20 minutes and then took all your fun away.
And then, hey, play for 40 hours before you start to get that fun back.
There's been a lot of games that like tried doing that thing but failed, because I feel like I'm trying to think of the name of it. It was the game that also had a television show at the same time, and it was on Sci-Fi. Defiance. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I remember that game.
I liked the television show. The game was miserable.
There are also a lot of MMOs that were like, oh, whoops, our content doesn't engage players for enough time. Let's make everything take twice as long so that players will be engaged twice as long. And then no players end up staying because now the game has like become a slog.
Right.
And I'm number one looking at you, champions.
It's online.
That convinced me to pay a lot of money because I was like, you know what? Yeah, this game's great. You guys are letting me play this incredibly fun game that I get to like make a cool, colorful, like I would have kept playing that game if it was still as fun as it was in beta.
Right, like it was one of the funnest games I had played. And I played the hell out of that beta.
And I would have absolutely rolled tons of ults in that game because there were so many different character builds you could do.
I did make a ton of ults in that game. Briefly.
Yeah.
I mean,
that one makes me mad.
To be fair, WoW pulled this thing as well. I loved the pre-release paladins. They were so much fun.
I understand WoW had some PvP implications at launch, as I've heard from Tam's Warlock stories.
So, but here's the thing, like, there was some really interesting synergy going on with that system, and one of my good friends at the time wanted to play a Smite Priest. And I ran around as a paladin and debuffed things against holy damage, and he came around and just nuked the hell out of them. And I don't think that was the intended combo that they were going for. It was super fun to run around just taking on content as a priest and paladin pair. And
it's
it
super
felt
thematic.
so amazing. Yeah, it was like, of course these two would have synergy. It's a priest, it's a paladin. They both worship the light. It makes sense. No. What the hell is this auto swing thing that I now have?
It's the only thing you have. Auto swing is the only thing paladins get, obviously.
Yep. Put it in your cloth and heal.
Paladins can't be a fun class.
I also, and I realize warriors and bear druids in the crowd may disagree with me. I mostly think that when you press a button, a thing should happen, not a thing should happen sometime later.
I agree with you.
Yeah,
I hated Heroic Strike.
Heroic Strike was bad.
Heroic Strike and Maw are awful.
I mean, to be fair, they've fixed this now.
Yeah, but it took a while.
It took an excessive long time to get it fixed.
It was an interesting way of limiting the amount. Like that was when you were rage dumping. Like if you were into Heroic Strike, that meant you were getting way too much rage. Oh, which also reminds me of how broken Warrior was as a concept.
The more damage you deal, the more resources you have to deal damage.
Yeah, completely useless until you gear out and then completely breaks the game in half.
Well, and
this happened every single expansion.
And the same was true with tanking, that like you got a point where I am not getting hit anymore.
Gotta take off your pants. Take off your pants to tank.
Yep. Because like I inevitably took my pants off and was tanking dungeons that way because removing one piece of armor was enough mitigation that let me run heroics for friends. Because once I was a raid geared tank, like nothing was hitting me hard enough for me to ever have rage.
Rage was a bad mechanic and should feel bad.
Rage is still a bad mechanic. I'm going to be honest, like it's still a bad mechanic. They've patched around it, but it's still a lousy mechanic. Playing an energy class always felt significantly better.
I did like playing an energy class once. I don't know, are rogues reasonable anymore?
I don't know. I have no clue. I think the only rogues that I ever liked playing were the ones in Rift.
I mean, that WoW found a lot of other ways to make that game a slog, and waste people's time. So
It's fair. They came up with other ones over time.
Yeah.
Back to the games I've lost all contact with is Rift. I used to play a lot of Rift, and then it got sold, and everybody that I knew that worked on it got laid off, and I stopped paying attention to it. And I think it's in maintenance mode. I don't think any new development is being done for it.
Yeah, I don't think so.
It is in the MMO graveyard, being milked for whatever subscriptions people will be willing to pay for.
Oh, in other games with 3 in the name that I've lost track of, Crusader Thick Kings 3, where all I know is that they fixed all my exploits.
Well, and I mean, Wasteland 3 is supposedly really good, but I've not touched it since it came out. I also never finished Outer Worlds.
Oh, really? Outer
Yeah,
Worlds was great.
And there's a big expansion coming out for it.
There are 2 expansions to Outer Worlds, but I think you might be getting confused with the expansion to Outer Wilds, which is coming out soon.
Look, there are games that are outer and start and have a second word that starts with W are great.
Yeah, I haven't finished either of them. Outer Wilds is I got to recently.
Outer Wilds is great. Like, okay, so caveat to Outer Wilds, if you don't think the flight mechanics are fun, like, skip it. I think the flight mechanics are super fun, and the puzzles are really interesting.
I have gotten better at the flight mechanics, mostly by letting the computer deal with the flight mechanics.
Yes, much like in an actual plane. This is also what you should do.
You know what game I haven't heard of in a long time and am now trying to figure out if it still exists? Hex.
It does not exist.
It does not exist.
The other one that mostly just waiting for the next opportunity, but like Vermintide 2 is a ton of fun.
Yeah.
So I feel like I don't actually know how much we've talked about it on this show, but Vermintide 2 is fun, but it's kind of been completely sunset by Deep Rock Galactic for me.
They're very different things for me.
Interesting. They don't feel like different things for me. I don't know why.
Deep Rock Galactic for me is like, it's not fantasy. It's like, yes, it's first person and yes, it's co-op, but that's for me kind of where the similarities end.
I mean, one seems like it's a shooty bands game, and the other one is a miney person game.
Oh, no.
No, not really.
No, yeah. I was like, is Deep Rock Galactic the shooty one?
I was thinking that too.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, you better be you better enjoy shooty if you're playing Deep Rock Galactic.
I mean, Deep Rock Galactic is a ton of fun.
Oh, it's super
I do really
fun.
like that game.
Like, I do really like that game.
Game that I have heard great things about, but I have never played, is Gunfire Reborn.
I played it.
Which is like a roguelike shooter.
Yeah, I played it.
That's one I think I'd like to play in multiplayer, but I haven't gotten a chance to.
Yeah.
I think it would be more fun with other people. I found it a little bit uninspiring. Well, I found it a little bit uninspiring for just myself, and it does the thing that I hate from roguelikes, which is, let's give you a bunch of characters, but you can't play them. You have to play a character that you don't like.
AKA why I never got anywhere with Risk of Rain.
I have also not gotten very far in Risk of Rain 2.
Same.
Like, I feel like I would probably enjoy it co-op, but I've never played it co-op. Because, like, I only really like playing Risk of Rain when Ash is carrying me. And then it's really fun.
I do at least think the Commando works just as well in 3D as 2D, which is a thing I was surprised about. Like, yes, okay, that's the starting character. Yeah, they're still a little boring, but they're still also pretty effective.
Yeah, but like, effective but boring isn't what I want as my introduction to a game.
Fair.
Because it means that because then it means that all the more interesting stuff is less good than the boring thing I started with.
I think my initial issue with Risk of Rain is that the first character I unlocked was the shield dude, who I think is probably the worst character in the game. But I think all the others have a reason you might want to play them over the Commando.
Game that I want to get back to that I've lost track of is Ghost of Tsushima, especially now that there's like a big expansion on the way.
One of these days, I need to play the multiplayer of that game.
I didn't realize it had a multiplayer.
It does. It has very detail, like 4-class multiplayer.
What?
There's 4 classes that are totally different in the multiplayer.
Yeah, not only does it have multiplayer, I've heard the multiplayer is incredible. Like, they added the multiplayer post-launch, and it's crazy, evidently crazy good. And I can't even imagine what the multiplayer in that game would be like.
I've got no clue.
Having tried it.
But it was free. Like, it's just a thing that showed up as available.
Yeah, I play that game. I've been slowly... It's very rare that I slowly play a game for a long period of time. That game is meditative for me.
I really wish it were available on the PC. Like, if it were ever available on the PC, I would probably consume it in large chunks. I feel like that's a game that I would enjoy better with a mouse and keyboard.
Oh no, I think for me, I don't think a mouse and keyboard would improve it for me. I would still play it with a controller on the PC. Just feels optimized for it. But but I definitely play it. It's turned into my version of Kojo's VVV.
It's a thing I revisit often.
Yeah.
But like I still feel like I have so much more to get through. Like, I'm so far from the end. I'm slowly working my way across the map and knocking things out, and it's fun every time I play it. It's just I've not played it in a while.
Yeah, very decent odds that if I beat that game, I'll platinum it.
And Sucker Punch makes really interesting worlds. I liked just roaming around in
Infamous.
Yeah, Infamous. What, Forgotten Son or
Second Son?
Second Son. There you go. Couldn't remember the name of it. Yeah, that one was really fun.
I didn't really like the first, didn't really play the second, but Second Son was very good.
I tried to go back and play the other two. It's just the fidelity wasn't quite there. Like, Second Son was a much better game than those games were. I think we've run out of remember wins. So on Genshin Impact, is there anything specific that you were wanting to talk about on that one? Since I know that one's got a lot of content recently.
Not too much. Just that the new 2.0 is out, and so there's new stuff to explore and enjoy.
Is it by any chance less grindy to level characters?
No.
Okay. No, I mean they've added, depending on when the last time you were in, there's a way or potentially multiple ways to double your effect of getting character leveling stuff.
Yeah. The condensed resin, yeah.
Yeah, so that's nice. So instead of running the little clouds and, the leyline clouds and getting whatever amount of XP materials, you can either pay the normal price or you can pay in condensed resin and get double the results. So it means you have to run the individual little events half as much. So that helps.
The biggest challenge that I have is I have this big stable of characters, but there's like only a handful that I will ever play because those are the ones that have progressed.
I mean, I have a ridiculous stable of characters and it keeps growing, but I just pick a handful that I like and focus on them, and it seems to work.
Yeah, you do have to kind of pick and choose a bit, but after a while, through like events or daily farming or whatever, you can build up a nice supply of books for the experience, and then I guess after that you just have to worry about having talent books and gear.
Yeah, and I mean, of all of my characters, I'm not even sure any of them are completely maxed out on talents. Maybe one. Maybe.
Like, I would love to get a Diluc, but like, say I pulled a Diluc tomorrow, it would be so expensive to catch Diluc up to Razor that I'm probably gonna still play Razor like forever, just because like that's the character that is my carry.
I don't think it's that bad. Like, I've definitely gotten a few characters later on that I really liked, and I just spent the time. And yeah, especially with events and things, like there's other ways of getting XP, so I don't feel, yeah, it might take a little bit longer to get all of the talents all the way up, but at least to get leveled, and you probably already have a weapon that you can trade to them and artifacts. Like, they might not be perfect, but they'll be functional. So I don't think it's that onerous. Honestly, I swapped out who my usual fourth character was, and it didn't take that long to get her to a point where she was functional.
Yeah, it's not too bad. I mean, you can be surprised at how quickly some stuff can, build up with events and stuff. But I wouldn't say it takes a ton of effort. Maybe it depends on the character, but it's definitely doable in a couple days if you kind of know what you want to focus on specifically.
And the other thing is, there's so much content. Like, the thing that I loved about the game when I started playing it, and I still love, is just running around in the open world and exploring and puzzles, and there's so much of it. I haven't even unlocked the new area yet. I just got the quest to go there finally, but I've been having a ton of fun, and I've been catching up on other like non-main story quests, and just, yeah, it's great.
And the exploration in Azuma is that they've, of course, added a couple new different sorts of like little things to do on your way. I mean, there's still like the electroloci or whatever to gather and feed to the statues. And they have like the Sakura tree, which is kind of like the tree in Dragonspine, only this has more levels, so it's like kind of more stuff to gather as you go. But the sigils you get for the tree are in treasure chests, which is stuff that you do naturally, but it feels like you're getting more rewards just for going around and doing stuff.
Yeah, I've been impressed that every time they add significant content, it feels not just that they're adding something, but they're building and like learning from what worked and actually making improvements, not just tacking things on.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think especially
for someone who missed the boat originally, how bad would it be to get into the game at this point?
I mean, I think it would be very simple because like if your friends want to play with you, they can level down to your world and help out. And there's just a ton of content, and there's nothing really to catch up to necessarily. It's just a lot of story to play through.
Yeah, I've had a couple friends who started just within like the last couple of weeks or whatever. And I mean, the one, she's like been playing it a lot. She's been going through the story and exploring, and just she doesn't feel like she has to get caught up because we can always jump into her world and help her out, with like weekly bosses and stuff. So she's not feeling super pressured like, oh my gosh, I'm so behind. Oh my gosh. She's just kind of playing naturally, and she's just getting caught up by just doing the story and going through stuff that way. So I wouldn't say it's very bad at all.
Oh,
yeah, the only catch is probably that if you were in a multiplayer world like that, you need to make sure that you're only going to accept rewards from your version of it instead of the other versions. Because like,
right,
if you're like in a level 20 world and you're at world rank 50, you're gonna get level 20 rewards if you spend the tokens on it or the whatever resin.
And that's not so bad, because one thing too in multiplayer, especially when you're in a lower world, if you're helping somebody with a boss or a domain, it just kind of takes seconds, and then it's like not that big of a deal to go back and do it again on your world.
I mean, that was one thing I really liked about it, that you can go do content and the lockout is, whether or not you want to spend resin on it.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. And even, there are bosses, essentially world bosses, that you can only do once a week, but that just means you can only get loot from them once a week.
Right.
You can go run those as many times as you feel like if you just want to do it or help your friends. Doesn't matter.
Yep, it's whether or not you want to spend your resin on whatever activity you're doing.
Yep.
And that's another nice thing. They still have the thing where events no longer cost resin. You're only spending resin on your day-to-day stuff. You don't have to worry about saving it specifically for
that's
events.
Yeah.
good.
Yeah, that's
That's
a
good.
huge quality of life change there.
That was the thing that really frustrated me, was when they would have an event and like, okay, now I got to spend resin to do this thing.
I mean,
Yeah,
they
was a
were
big problem with the first event. Yeah.
Yeah, they learned that pretty quick because I think it was just the second event, and then they're like, yeah, okay, no more resin on events.
Yeah, I mean, the events, those early events, were still worth spending resin on because the rewards were still higher than your normal daily activities, but that you just had to accept that they replaced them, and now there's no limit like that on the daily stuff. There's also a gigantic housing system that's been put in
Yes.
since the last time that I played, and I've only just scratched the surface of it, but it seems amazing. The zone that they give you for it is absolutely huge, and and you can have your companions go in there and get companionship XP for them while they're in there, and you can have like a million kitties running around your house, and it's great. And your butler is a giant burb.
And it's all inside a teapot, right?
Yep, that's the
Yep.
teapot, yep. I'm making a cat cafe in one of my houses because why not?
I've
Sounds like a plan.
just started scratching the surface with that one, but it seems really fun, and it scratched an itch that I haven't gotten in that type of game in a while, so that's good. But I always appreciate when the housing content in a game actually gives you other functional benefits without being really, like, I don't know, grindy or onerous about them.
Yep. Plus, they just added on farming. It's fairly limited yet, but now you can do like some light farming, like for various flowers and stuff, like mint and sweet flower in the overworld. Now you can just grow some in your teapot.
Well, that's cool.
Yeah, or some of the herbs that are like, oh, this is annoying to have to go farm these
Yes.
things that only grow one apiece on the top of a mountain, and now I can just grow some. But yeah, I think anyone who hasn't tried it might, if you think it sounds interesting, you probably should. And if you tried it and bounced because it felt grindy, I would suggest coming back and at least trying to play through the new story and zones, because you can do that as much as you want and there's nothing to grind.
I know at least the iOS versions has controller support.
Yeah, I haven't checked to see if there is for the Android version, but now that I actually have a new phone, I can play it on my phone, and it's surprisingly functional.
I need to reinstall it and patch it up and see if it works with my Razer Kishi.
Is PS4 still in like its own little space?
Yeah, it is its own thing.
No, not anymore. No.
Wait, you can log in your characters?
Yes, they just
on
fixed that, which
PS4?
is, yeah, because like last week when I had computer problems, like that was the week they added in the patch with the crossplay, so I was able to log into my PlayStation 4 and play my account and get my fix
Holy
and not
hell,
die.
That just added all kinds of new life to it.
Yeah, wow. Hold on.
Yeah,
this was just this is 10 days ago. They made this change 10 days ago.
yeah, exactly. Like, yeah, the day that my computer went down.
Okay, yeah, like I will probably play it on my PS5.
That would be recommended. Yeah, it's. I had a weird time with adapting to the controller at first because I'm so used to PC, but after a while I'm like, okay, I can do this.
Yeah, that is so much better, because like that's one of the things that's frustrated more than anything is that like PlayStation was an island.
Not anymore.
That was the thing that was hard for me because I don't know if it supports inverted Y, but it was unplayable for me on PC.
It does, because I have to invert too when I use a controller.
Well, I mean, in that I was using a controller to play on PC because
Oh, okay, yeah.
I
Didn't
couldn't
have
play
input Y
it.
mouse.
Yeah, I couldn't.
Oh,
invert
I
the
got
mouse.
you. Yeah, I got you. Yeah, okay.
And I remember at one point I could invert the controller, but not the mouse. I was like, why?
Yes, you could invert the controller, but you had to use O to confirm.
Yep.
I think they fixed the key bindings relatively quickly. I know Fall Guys fixed their controller invert issue relatively quickly.
Yeah, I need to get it all patched up on my phone, because like I'm really curious, because if I could play it on my phone with like the Kishi from bed, it would be good times, because I'm still waiting on the Switch version, and I'm really hoping now that PlayStation and everywhere else is playing together, that means when a Switch version does release, it will play with everything else too.
Mm-hmm. That is one thing to note about Aloy too, is people who do play on the PlayStation will get her a patch before everybody else. So if you have a means of logging into your PlayStation account and linking your Genshin account there, then you'll have access to Aloy a couple of weeks before anybody else.
Hopefully it's not super painful, because like I did play some on my PlayStation, so that's a totally different account than my PC account.
I know they had a few restrictions or whatever, but they had a pretty big article on it. I'll dig it up for you in a few minutes here.
Yeah, because like I wonder if that means that you also get like the exclusive PlayStation wings and all that stuff too.
You do, but you can't use them on any other devices. Like when I logged in, I got the weapon and the wings, but if I were to equip the wings and then go back to PC, that character would have the default wings. So you get them, but you don't.
That's fine. I mean, getting Aloy early, that's awesome. Like, this conversation suddenly made me way more interested in Genshin. I'm not sure if any of the other topics we have are short. 'Cause I'm looking through them, and I don't think they're short.
Ghostrunner might be a little short. I don't think we talked about it that much.
Okay, let's talk about Ghostrunner then.
Strange game.
What a very strange game.
So I picked up Ghostrunner. I picked up Ghostrunner when I was mad about Cyberpunk, but wanted to play a Cyberpunk game. And it's not what I was expecting. I was expecting a, Cyberpunk first-person shooter, which I guess it technically is.
It's a first-person game.
It is first-person.
Isn't it more Mirror's Edge than shooter?
Ooh, it's a kind of.
Kind of?
Because it's like a lot of movement and running along surfaces of things. And...
Sure. Okay, so here's the really big trick, though. Mirror's Edge, I can actually get shot and not immediately go down.
Yeah, this is like...
It's like a first-person Katana Zero.
Yeah. If Super Meat Boy were a third-person game where you were playing a cyber ninja.
Yeah. So, I mean, we're going around running very fast. We have air dashes and we have grapple hooks, and we are zooming around this these various, like, the inner workings of this dystopic city, slicing up people very quickly while they try and shoot at us with great accuracy and great lethality. Like, if you aren't moving, they're gonna hit you. And if you're moving, like, directly at them, they're probably also going to hit you. Fortunately, you have bullet time, which allows you to also, like, dodge sort of left or right in the air, and then you have a couple of dashes. And you can parkour, like, do wall runs and climbs and whatnot. And yeah, you're parkouring around, and like, you have a sword that you get close and slice somebody up. But it's super fast retry, also like Meat Boy. So I don't say I'm good at this game, but I'm persistent at this game.
Yeah, I think you've gotten farther than I have.
I have gotten farther than you have, and I think on most levels I die about 3 times as much as you do.
Yeah, it shows your stats, specifically complete time and number of deaths.
Kind of similar to the stuff they do with Magnum Opus, where like you see all of your friends list stats on levels.
Yeah. What I find really interesting, and it's one of those, I would be fascinated to watch us to do a side-by-side stream of the two of us playing and then watch it later, is my complete time is usually about a third less than yours. Like your complete time is about half again as long as mine, but you have 3 times as many deaths.
I am definitely going fast.
I played it fast, but I don't play it that fast, apparently. I was like, oh, I finished this in 20 minutes and you finished it in 30. I died 63 times. You died more than 200.
Nope.
I mean, the faster you get back going again.
Oh, I hit that button quick. I thought I did anyway. But it's really interesting because it is a game that is doing a particular thing and is just leaning into it. It's like, we're just gonna do a puzzle platformer, and it's got a pretty great progression. It shows you more things without overwhelming you. It's got a pretty compelling aesthetic, and it knows what it's doing, and is more than happy to just lean into that. It also has the most permissive hit detection I have ever seen.
I mean, for the sword?
Yeah.
Yeah, it definitely
you
does
hitting an
that.
enemy or an enemy hitting you in almost every case is a one-hit kill.
Yo.
And I think that your sword arc is about the hit. What is it? What is that called in fighting games?
The hitbox?
Hitbox?
Not the hitbox, because that's the thing that's being hit.
No, the hurt box.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that the hurt box for your sword is the height of your character and extends in about a 270 degree arc.
Yeah.
About 3 meters out from your character.
Yeah, I mean, notably, it also will dash if you've got somebody close to you.
Yeah.
If it can close the distance reasonably quickly, it will close the distance and kill someone.
Yeah. And it's one of those things where it's like, if this game required me to be accurate in the least with the sword, it would be so frustrating. But it does not.
I mean, it sounds like it's basically a loose interpretation of the whole bullet hell thing.
It is.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because on most of those, your hurt box on your ship is minuscule, and your gunfire fills a lot of the screen. So it's not like you need to be terribly accurate.
Yep.
Well, your hurt box is, I don't know how minuscule your hurt box is. It feels pretty big to me. But mostly bullets are just very accurate to you.
Yeah.
The thing one of the nice little small touches I really like is the game does this slow down thing after you've killed. So you're usually coming to a room. There are going to be enemies in specific locations in that room shooting at you. And you're going to do this room a whole bunch until you figure out the right path you want to take through the room to kill all of the enemies. And once you kill all of the enemies, there's this brief slow down of everything to let you as a player catch your breath, and also to tell you, yes, you have finally killed the last person in this room.
It looked really cool. Then I saw some gameplay of it and how motion focused it was, and it made me think that it would probably also give me motion sickness.
I think that it does a much better job than Mirror's Edge of that, because Mirror's Edge is very, very. There's a lot of motion changes, and also it's very. It's obsessed with its kinesthesia. So if you do a somersault, your whole view is somersaulting. Whereas this is not doing any such thing.
Yeah, that drove me insane with Mirror's Edge. There was a period of time in high school where I suffered from vertigo, and games that move too fast make me feel like I'm dealing with that again. It's really pretty. I've watched a little bit of gameplay of it, and it's beautiful.
It is very pretty, and there's a fun little like voiceover story that you could care about, possibly. Not really.
I mean, they tried.
It is a fun
It's more story than most people have in games.
Well,
for an indie game.
But it definitely feels like a game that they've got speedrunning on the brain, and I appreciate it.
Godra.
Yes.
Have you played Katana Zero?
I have not. I am probably going to pick that up after I get done with Celeste. Yes, I realize I should probably play Katana Zero.
I'm trying to remember, did you ever play Thousand Spikes or whatever that game is called?
Okay. 1001
I'm pretty
Spikes.
sure I bought that game for him.
I did not beat it. I could probably revisit it at some point.
I mean, it just feels like the sort of masochism you'd be into.
It's pretty fun. It's a little bit slower. Like it's a little bit slower than most of the platformers I really like. Especially now that I'm learning how to wave dash.
You'll be playing Melee in no time.
I mean, I feel like I'm watching the evolution of you into speedrunning. Like, at some point, you will be doing speedruns of these things.
I mean, he already has an entry on the leaderboard for the letter V6 times.
Yeah, I have a speedrunning entry on speedrun.net or speedrun.com. I don't remember which one it is. For the letter V6 times, 100% glitchless.
I mean, you will be bunny hopping backwards through things and glitching through walls and...
Yeah, but that's the thing is like, okay, so I realize speedrunners, they care about speed, gotta go fast. I want to play games in ways that look cool, and I don't necessarily find all of like, I'm gonna like glitch this game in half always looks cool to me, I don't think. Celeste is probably the coolest speedrun game ever because it's got a whole bunch of tech that makes speedrunning it look so cool. And then the other thing I really love about Celeste speedrun, there was an exploit discovered that allowed for a very difficult input to allow you to bypass a huge section of the game, or like a third of one of the levels. And so instead of the developer being like, whoops, this is a glitch, I need to get rid of this, they actually put in a option for you to press a button to perform the input exploit. So you don't have to actually do the complicated input. You can just press a single button and it'll give it to you, which means it's easier and more accessible for people to speedrun the game. They're called demo dashes.
I would be 100% uninterested in Celeste if it didn't, in addition to caring about being very technical and difficult, also cared more than almost any game I've seen about accessibility.
Yep. And I know Ash keeps bringing up, like, I'm not using accessibility options. I do like the accessibility options. It's just I'm trying to do it without those. It's the challenge.
That's also reasonable.
Okay.
I'm just saying that for people who look at all of these fancy things and think it might be out of reach, it doesn't have to be.
It doesn't, and very importantly, it's a really fun game, like, to play at whatever level you're playing. It's also very beautiful and sounds great.
So I know, like, this is kind of an offshoot of the accessibility discussion, but I had a discovery this week, and I don't know when this was put into Final Fantasy XIV, but at some point, like, I remember there was a couple of duties that were solo duties that were painful in Stormblood.
Yes, the last one.
Yeah. So I remember having to do one of them 3 times, and it pissed me off. Apparently now they've put it in so that if you fail out of any of them, you're given 3 choices of normal, easy, or very easy. I've never chosen very easy, but I've chosen easy and it was really easy. So I don't think anybody's going to get story blocked by a solo duty that they can't quite do.
Something, name of the moon, something.
Yes. And that was the worst because it was so long.
Yes.
And if you screwed up on any part, you're back to the beginning of this 20-minute long duty.
Yeah, they've also gotten better about putting checkpoints in duties like that.
Yeah.
Also
There is a very long duty at the end of Shadowbringers, but it's got checkpoints.
The freaking Fate of Stars did not have checkpoints. That was in Heaven's Ward, though. That's the one you do in the Warring Dryad quest line in
The thing
between
that's
some of
funny,
those.
Yeah.
the Stormblood duty that made me rage quit. Like I think the one duty that made me rage quit harder than anything else in FF14 is one that everybody else was like, that was trivial. I breezed through that.
I thought that was a Shadowbringers one.
It was a Shadowbringers one. Sorry, not Stormblood, Shadowbringers.
But yeah, it was just particularly unsuited to the class you were playing.
Yeah, so dumb.
But yeah, accessibility, it's important.
It is important. Like, I got into a not so low-key argument one day about whether or not games like Dark Souls should have a difficulty slider.
Yes, next question.
They should.
Exactly. Like,
Yep.
next question, yes.
It is better if more people can experience your game, full stop, for everyone who's playing it.
I mean,
Because even if what you are is a hardcore, I want to show off how uber awesome I am, more people can appreciate how much of a badass you are playing on very hard or whatever if they were able to see even what you were talking about on easy.
Mm-hmm.
Like if what you want is to lord your skills over people, then giving people context for which you to allow yourself to do so is better if more people are playing the game.
yeah.
So like, even if you're an egotist, it's better. And as far as everybody else,
I mean,
it just means more people can experience it.
Yeah. Like, look at Final Fantasy XIV. Like, there are versions of Trials that you can do with randoms and complete. And then there are savage versions of things. And you can watch people do those savage versions of things, and you understand what's going on because you've done the normal version of this trial, but it's so much more insane. And you know how much difficulty you had with it.
Yeah, you can understand immediately how horrifyingly, difficult that dance is, having experienced it on normal.
And the tiers up of these different things in FF14 are in many cases designed to show you that it could be harder.
Yep.
But, like, that progression feels so natural that, like, oh, okay, well, I did the story mode version of this. Let's try the extreme version. Okay, well, I did that. Well, let's try this ultimate version. We'll see how bad it is. And, like, you've had iterative, like, jumps in difficulty along the way. And there's a lot of stuff that's familiar between each version of the fight. It's just becomes more punishing. Like, there's less room for error.
Mm-hmm.
You have to learn your dance a little bit better.
And and maybe the arena is smaller, or like more parts of it fall away, or all sorts of madness.
Yep.
Like, part of me would like to try Uwu just to see what it's like. And for anyone who has no clue what that is, it's like, what, Ultima Weapon Ultimate?
Oh yeah.
Yes. The one where they trolled the player base.
Yeah, like, but the thing is okay, that was released as a trolling of the player base, and it has turned into a thing that they are regularly releasing these ultimate modes because the player base loved it.
So that was the second one, though. Like, they released Bahamut first.
Right.
And it was hard. It was very hard. So they released the second one, and it seemed like it was very hard. But people made progress through it. And then people discovered that roughly halfway through the fight, their progress was incorrect. And it was actually harder than that.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, because, like, something they were doing was incorrect?
So you have to do specific mechanics in Ifrit, Garuda, and Titan wrong in order to power them up so that you get a special buff when you beat them.
Ah.
Yeah, I loved that. I thought it was super clever because that's one of the other things that gives you where like having multiple difficulty levels really really gives you some interesting options
because everyone's done this fight at least three versions of this fight already.
Yeah, it means that there's more opportunity for encounters to subvert expectations.
And anybody who is playing at this difficulty, they know what they're getting themselves into.
Yep.
You're allowed to be ultra punishing.
And it's also it's beautiful to watch a game where higher difficulty doesn't just mean everything faster.
Yes.
Those fights are all distinct.
Yep.
Like, there are mechanics that are different. Things you might have to do wrong, or things you have to do differently, or they're not just harder, faster versions of the same fight.
Mm-hmm.
I used to always actually kill Shiva hard groups because how you handle a specific mechanic is different than Shiva EX. Turns out a big frontal cone that splits damage is different than a big frontal cone that does tank buster damage.
Oh,
Yeah.
yes.
That topic was a little longer than anticipated.
Yep. All right.
Okay, well, in that case, hopefully everybody enjoyed the show, and we will see you all again next week. Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.